نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. So we've covered now the first day of your Jamarat. That's where we stopped, wasn't it? The first day of the pelting of the Jamarat, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. The other thing to bear in mind is that from the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which is the day of Arafah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, from the time of Fajr Salat, beginning from the Fajr of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, normally all the Muslims, after they say Salam of the Fard Salat, then they say the Takbir of Tashriq, Takbiratul Tashriq, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd, once. That begins from the Fajr of the day of Arafah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. And there are two opinions in our madhab. There are two opinions of the Imams of our madhab. One opinion is that it begins from the Fajr of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah and and it ends after the Asr of the next day. Okay, so it begins after the Fajr of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. You say it after all 5 prayers of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, and then you say it after the Fajr, the Dhuhr, and the Asr of the next day, the day of Eidul Adha, the first day of Nahar, of Qurbani. That's one opinion in the Hanafi School of Sharia. The other opinion is that it extends from the Fajr of the day of Arafah all the way to the Asr Salat of the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. Okay, the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. So you say it after you've prayed your Fajr of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. You say it after the Farz of every Salat, all the way to until after you've said it after the Asr Salat of the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. So the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th of Dhul Hijjah. You, even though you will be Musafir, most likely you will be Musafir during your Hajj, you will still say it. So don't forget to say your Takbir of Tashriq after every Fard Salat during your Hajj. From the 9th, starting from the Fajr of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah all the way to after the Asr of the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. On the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, you've now returned in the morning from Muzdalifah, where you spent the night. You've come to Mina, you've unpacked your bag, or you will most probably not have much luggage. Then you will take a brief rest, if there is time for you to take a rest, depending on what the plan is by your group leaders. And then you will go to pelt the big jamra, or the big pillar or wall nowadays, the big shaitan, on that day. So on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah you will be pelting just the big shaitan, the big jamra, al-jamratul aqaba, the big shaitan. And remember, the big shaitan is which one out of the 3? It's the one which is closest to the masjid, or the near, or the distant to the masjid of Mina. It's the furthest from the masjid of Mina, because it's the big shaitan. It is a bid'ah to pelt the other 2 shaitans, the other 2 pillars on that day. It's a bid'ah. So it's an innovation, is forbidden to do so. In the olden days, people managed to also throw stones at all of them, thinking it's a good thing, I'm hitting the shaitans, I might as well hit all of them. But nowadays, alhamdulillah, they will not allow you to do it. There will be soldiers stationed there. Throughout your Hajj, you will see that it is full of soldiers. Okay, so the soldiers will block the people from going near to the small shaitan and the medium shaitan, al-jamratul ula and al-jamratul musta. You will not be able to go and pelt your pebbles at them. You will be prevented anyway. So you do that on that day. The method of, and you do it when? On the first day? What's the time? Anyone remember from sunrise?
Sunrise till Zawal.
Yes, from sunrise to the time of Zawal is the sunnah time of doing it on that day. So this is how you will do it. Now the method, and also I mentioned to you yesterday that there are, in terms of the timing on the first day of pelting the shaitans, there are 4 different slots in terms of the permissibility or how good or otherwise it is to pelt the shaitan, the big shaitan, on your first day of pelting, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, the day of Eid. There are 4 timings or time slots, periods. The first is the best. The first is not the best rather. The first is makruh. From the beginning of Fajr. From the beginning of Fajr of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah to the time of sunrise, is a makruh time. And then from sunrise, now the second slot or second time period. From sunrise to zawal is the sunnah time. That is the sunnah time, that's the best time, that's the most rewardable. And then from zawal to sunset is the mubah time. Mubah means lawful, permissible, jaiz. And then from sunset to the fajr, as-subh as-sadiq of the next day is again makruh. So these are the 4 timings. So there's flexibility. Also, when we get there, inshallah, the next day, the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, and then again on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, when you on both days, on those 2 days, you will be pelting all 3 jamarat, all 3 shaitans. Again, you will have different timings which will, a time which will be impermissible. On the 11th and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, there will be a time which will be najaiz, unlawful to pelt the shaitan in. And then you'll have a timing which will be sunnah, and then there will be mubah time, makruh time, etc., which inshallah I will describe when we get there. Now, the makruh timings in all 3 days of pelting the jamarat are makruh under normal circumstances, under normal conditions for normal people without any a'adhar, without any excuses. Most of us here, all of us here. If there are women, there are elderly people, weak people, sick people, for whom it is unsafe to go and attempt pelting the jamarat during the best time, the sunnah time, then they are allowed by the sharia, they've been given the concession, the leeway, the permission to go and pelt the shaitans during the makruh time. It will not be makruh for them. Okay? When we went this last time, we pelted, with the exception of the first day, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, when after sunrise, from sunrise to zawal, is the sunnah time of pelting the big shaitan. With the exception of that day, when we went with everyone else, all the other hujjaj, we went and we attempted, and we did pelt the big shaitan. With the next 2 days, we went, our family went, every day we went during the night. Every day we went during the night because we had my mom and dad in wheelchairs and we had women with us. So we went every night during the makruh time, which otherwise would have been makruh. Okay, disliked, discouraged. So for women, the elderly people, weak and elderly and sick people who may not be in the best of health, for them there's no makruh. The makruh time for them is also permissible. They can go, it will not be makruh for them. If you want to do yours, all of you brothers want to do yours according to in the sunnah time slot, then you can go and do yours because the jamarat are not very far from your tents, from Mina. So you can go and pelt the shaitans in the sunnah time on all 3 days, 10th, 11th and 12th, and the optional day, the 13th, if you so choose to do. You will pelt and you can come back to your tent, and then you can take your women folk, the elderly, with you during the night. And you will assist them, take them there, assist them, show them how to do it, or just be with them. Then that way you would have done your pelting during the sunnah time slot, and they would have also done their pelting at a time when it is permissible for them. The method, so when you will go from your tent in Mina to on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah to the big shaitan, when you will, as you go, you will be saying the talbiyah labbaik Allahumma labbaik labbaik la sharika laka labbaik innal hamda wan ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. So this will be your dhikr as you go there. You can also say other forms of dhikr, azkar. It will take you quite a long time because on that day is the busiest day, and that time from sunrise to zawal time, just before Zohar, is the time when the vast majority of the hujjaj attempt to go and pelt the shaitan, the big shaitan. So it will be very busy, and it will take what would have otherwise taken you about, I'd say, 15 to 20 minutes maybe to walk. If the path was clear, the route was clear for you to walk, it would have taken you 15 to 20 minutes. That route will take you probably 2 to 3 hours to walk, okay, on that day. So be prepared for that. Make sure you have an umbrella. When you get there, try and buy umbrellas. They're very cheap. And if you buy umbrellas, make sure you buy white colored umbrellas, so that they reflect the sun's heat, sun's rays off you. So make sure you have an umbrella with you. So it will be a slow and long walk. When you get to the big shaitan, then you will make the intention that, oh Allah, I am about to pelt the big jamra, the big shaitan for my Hajj. Oh Allah, make it easy for me and accept it from me. And then you will get near to the shaitan, near to the wall. Now all 3 shaitans, the pillars or walls, are surrounded by a wall. The walls themselves, which in the olden days used to be pillars, they're surrounded by a wall. Okay, a wall which is about your chest height. So try and get as close as possible to that wall. It's a circular wall that surrounds the houses, or surrounds the shaitan inside it, the wall. So try and go as close as possible to the wall, and then when you've got to as close as possible to the wall, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. If you want to take one copy for yourself, and also you also a late comer, if anyone else arrives, just remind me to give them a copy. When you get to the wall, inevitably there will be a lot of pushing and shoving, and people will not be doing this deliberately, but because of the sheer number of people there will be a lot of congestion and squashing and pushing. Always make sure you observe the full hijab, and you do not rub your body with the person with whom you should not be rubbing your body or coming into contact with. So always be very careful. That's why for women, they should be careful, and it is probably best for them not to go during that time, the sunnah time on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, to pelt the big shaitan, but rather go later, when it would have eased off. There will be less people there. When you get to where you want to get, as close as possible to the wall, then you will hold your first pebble. You will hold it between your thumb and your index finger. You will not hold it like this within your whole hand. And remember, if the pebble is the right size, then you won't be able to hold it like this. If it's a big boulder, a big rock, then you won't be able to hold it like this. You will have to grab it with all your fingers. So that's wrong. So if your pebble is the right size, as described in the books of fiqh, which is the size of a chickpea, then you'll hold it like this in your right hand. You'll hold one and raise your hand so high that if your arms were not to be fully covered by your ihram sheet, then, or if your sheet were to fall off, then your armpit is exposed. Okay, this is how it will be. You raise your hand high like this, and then saying Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, you will throw the pebble at the shaitan. Okay, make sure you throw it gently. Remember what I said yesterday, that this is not the real shaitan, it is symbolic. It represents shaitan. These walls represent shaitan. Okay? So if you hit it hard, it doesn't mean that shaitan is hit hard. It doesn't mean that. You have to be careful, because if you hit the wall hard, the shaitan hard, then your pebble will bounce off, and it will come off, and it will come back to where you are. Okay? And that is wrong. So make sure you hit your pebble, you throw your pebble gently enough so that it hits the wall, or if it even misses the wall, as long as it is within that wall that is surrounding the shaitan, the wall that is surrounding the shaitan, like a well, as long as it falls within that wall, within that boundary, then that pebble is counted as one that has been done properly. Okay? If you hit the wall, which is very easy to do, then make sure you don't throw it at a very high force. Okay? So you throw one pebble, Bismillahi Allahu Akbar. You take the next one out from your bottle or from your pouch or wherever you kept them. You raise your hand again, Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, throw it. You do this 7 times. There's also a dua that has been described by the ulama in the books, which is, if you can learn it, that is very good, which is, you will say, Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, and you will add, رغما للشيطان ورضا للرحمن اللهم اجعله حجا مبرورا وَسَعْيًا مَشْكُورًا وَذَنْبًا مَغْفُورًا. Okay? And you throw it. So if you can learn this dua, okay, then that will be good. رَغْمًا لِلشَّيْطَانِ وَرِضًا لِلرَّحْمَنِ اللَّهُمَّ اجْعَلْهُ حَجًّا مَبْرُورًا وَسَعْيًا مَشْكُورًا وَذَنْبًا مَغْفُورًا. Okay? And then Bismillah Allahu Akbar. Say the dua, and then you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar and throw it at the pillar, the shaitan. You do this with all 7 pebbles. Now the thing is, if you throw all 7 pebbles in one go, then that will be counted as 1 pebble. If you throw all 7 pebbles in one go, that will be counted as 1 pebble. As did one elderly chacha when we went to throw the second day during night. We went and I found this Bengali speaking Indian old man who was lost on the way. And he said he had been detached from his group and he didn't know where the shaitans were. So, and also he doesn't know where he has been living. He had come from his hotel in Azizia. So I said, I can't help you with the second bit because I haven't a clue where you are, where you're staying. And he didn't know it because he doesn't know anything. He's a elderly village person from India. But I said, if you want to pelt the shaitans, then you can come with me because we're going there. So I took him with me, with our group, my family. When we got there, it was quite congested even during the night. There were a lot of people and quite a lot of pushing. And he managed to get lost again. So then I did our pelting of the shaitan. The first one, which is the small shaitan. Everyone in our family did the pelting. And then after we had done ours, that elderly chacha appeared again. And I said, where have you been? He said, oh, I've done my pelting. So he had pelted all the shaitans, all 3 shaitans, all 7 in one go, all the pebbles in one go. Right? So he said, I've done it quickly. So if you do that, then that will be counted. If you throw all 7 pebbles in one go, you may think that you're throwing 7 pebbles in one go, that will hurt shaitan even more. But that will be harmful, detrimental to your Hajj, because that will be considered as 1 pebble being thrown, which means your pelting of the shaitan is incomplete, which will necessitate dam, okay, a penalty of sacrificing an animal. And also the penalties differ. This is why, depending on what wrong thing you've done, your penalty will be different. Sometimes your penalty could be sacrificing of a whole camel, and camels are very, very expensive. Even with your British pounds, camels are very expensive there. Or you may have to sacrifice a cow or a cattle, okay, guy. Or it may be a goat. Or it may be jaza, which means you have to give some money in sadaqah. Depending on what wrong thing you did, violation of your ihram you did, and for how long, how you did it and for how long, that will determine what the penalty is, what the fine is that you have to pay. This is why if you do something wrong, you need to check with the ulama, with the good alim, and the alim will tell you how you can now mend the damage that you've caused to your Hajj. So this is what you will do. After you've pelted all your 7 pebbles, you will now return back to Mina. There's no dua. There's no dua there. You will return to Mina. You'll spend the rest of the day in Mina. Now the second day, which is the 11th of Dhul Hijjah. Oh no, we've got more things to do on that day, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. So you've done your pelting of the shaitan, the big shaitan. The next thing that you have to do is the sacrificing of an animal. Because all of you here will be doing the second best type of Hajj, which is Hajj Tamattu'. Hajj Tamattu', because you're accomplishing 2 forms of ibadat in one journey, which is you have already performed your Umrah. And now you're in the middle of your Hajj. So you have to express your gratitude. You have to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed to you, enjoined upon you in what way He wishes to be thanked. And He wants to be thanked, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to be thanked by you by sacrificing an animal, or 1/7 portion of a larger animal like a camel. This, ji.
Hajj Badrul,
Ji.
I can do my own Qurbani as well.
Meaning your Qurbani of Eid. Qurbani of Eid, are you saying?
Yes, because I'm doing one Qurbani on behalf of my mother.
Yeah.
Can I do another Qurbani?
Yes,
Qurbani?
yes, you can. You can. So you'll do. That's the next thing that you do. After pelting of the big shaitan, the next thing that you do on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah is that you'll be sacrificing an animal. What will happen in your cases is that you will most probably not be able to sacrifice the animal yourself. Although it is best, mustahab, desirable and rewardable that the Haji himself or herself sacrifices the animal, slaughters the animal with his or her own hands. But nowadays, because of the whole system there and because of how busy it is there, you will not be able to do it. Most probably you will not be able to do it. When we went the first time in 2002, we went and we bought the camels ourselves. And then we also washed from a platform the nahar being done to the camel. We knew our camels were there, and like a wrestling ring, each camel would be taken one by one into that wrestling ring, and there would be the person who would be doing the slaughtering of the camel. It's called nahar. Camels are not slaughtered, their throat is not cut, but they are stabbed with a dagger in the jugular main vein in their throat. So he'd get into this wrestling ring where the camel is stuck, and we were watching from above them. There was a platform from where you could watch, and the camels are also very clever. They know what's going on, and they also kick the man. And we saw one man also lose his tooth. The person was doing the nahar. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar. Fasalli li rabbika. So pray your salat for your Rabb, wanhar, and do nahar for your Rabb. And the ulama say that's a reference to nahar on the day of Eid al-Adha. Nowadays you won't be able to do it yourself. So what will most probably happen for you is that your tour operators, your group leaders will carry out your qurbani, damu shukr, your qurbani of your Hajj tamattu on your behalf. And even they themselves will not do it. They will appoint a person, they pay people to go and do it for you. There are people, that's another industry there on that day. That's another business. People are in that business over there. So your tour operator, travel agency people, group leaders, they would have taken money from, say, the 100 people in your group, or the 150 people in your group, or whatever number they have in the group. So they will give their names, and they will give the monies to people, agents over there, local agents there, who do this business, and they will go and buy your animals, and then they may also then subcontract to other people, and they will do the nahar. If in the case of a camel, the nahar, the stabbing of the camel, or if it's an animal which is not a camel, then the slaughtering, zabah of that animal on your behalf. Now the point that you must bear in mind, and this is very, very important, and a lot of people are heedless of this, neglectful of this, is that you cannot exit your ihram unless your qurbani has been done. You cannot do that. If you do, then dam becomes wajib on you. A penalty of a dam, of slaughtering of an animal slaughter, will become wajib upon you. You cannot. So how will you know whether your qurbani has been done or not? Now qurbani is not straightforward on that day, because you have to bear in mind that anything between 2 to 3 million qurbanis are to be done, and all are happening in Mina. And all of them are happening within that space of time, those days of slaughtering. So, and the most busiest day will be the first day, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. So it will take a long time. Don't be hasty. A lot of people, they become hasty because they're all exhausted. You're all exhausted now. You've been in Mina on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. You spent the next day, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, in Arafah. And then the night you spent in Muzdalifah. And then on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, you went all the way to pelt the big shaitan. So after doing all of these things, you've had sleepless nights. You've been walking long distances. And the intensity of the heat, you have not been eating and drinking properly. So people are completely worn out by that time. So they get restless. People just get restless. They start disputing and arguing with their group leaders, their tour operators, or they just want to get out of the ihram. Now you have to always bear in mind that this is a once in a lifetime journey of ishq, journey of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has handpicked me. He has chosen me to go to His house. So why should I be hasty? Why should I be rushing? Just wait patiently. Your tour operators, your group leaders will tell you when your qurbani has been done. For example, in our case, we were informed at about 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening, we were informed by our group leaders, tour operators, that our qurbani had been done. Now you may cut your hair, shave your head, and then exit your ihram. When they said that, even then I think I waited a bit. I waited another 2 hours just to be on the safe side, because it doesn't make any difference. If I get out of my ihram, so what will happen? Nothing. I'll be still in my hotel or wherever I am. So what I did, we just waited another 2 hours, and then we did it. So don't be hasty, don't rush, just relax. Okay, and spend that time in ibadat. Or if you're exhausted, try and get some sleep. If you can find some quiet moments when you can sleep. If not, just try and do dhikr, tilawat, etc. Utilize your time in good things. Wait until they have given you the go ahead. They've informed you with certainty that your qurbani of your Hajj has been done. Now you may cut your hair, you may shave your head, and you may exit your ihram. So wait patiently. Remember, the things that you do on that day, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, which is pelting of the big shaitan, and then the qurbani, damu shukr of your Hajj tamattu' or qiran, and then the shaving of the head or cutting of the hair, okay, those things must happen in the right order. They must happen in the right order. These 3 things must happen in the right order. I repeat again. The four things you will do on that day, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, which is going to be most probably your most busiest day of your Hajj, and most exhausting day of your Hajj. Out of those 4 things, the first 3 things must be, the tartib or the order must be maintained. You must do them in the right order. Pelting of the big shaitan must happen first. After that, you will do the qurbani of your animal, and you must wait until you know with full certainty that your qurbani has been done. And some people will tell you, "Oh, Haji Sahab, qurbani ho gaya, Allah Ta'ala ne qabul kar liya." They do this. They will say, "Haji Sahab, your Hajj, Allah has accepted your qurbani, your animal. You just now get on with your shaving." Okay, don't believe them. When you have full certainty that your qurbani has been done, and if you want to be extra cautious, then why not just wait till the night? There's no problem. Just wait till the night. And then late at night, you can shave your head, cut your hair, and then exit your ihram. Okay, there's no problem. Shaitan wants to trick us with these things. Where are you going to go? After doing, if you are hasty, and you get out of your ihram quickly, then what have you achieved? Where are you going? Are you going off somewhere or something? No, you're not going anywhere. So just wait, relax. Only after your qurbani has been done can you then shave or trim your hair and exit your ihram in the method that was described when we spoke about your Umrah. Okay, I'm not going to repeat all of that. The same thing, exactly the same things will happen now. The 4th thing that you have to start thinking of doing is your tawaf ziyarah, the main tawaf of your Hajj. This is the tawaf of your Hajj, the first tawaf of your Hajj, which is a must, which is also pivotal. Okay, without which your Hajj is incomplete. There was one family who went, I knew, and one of their family members did not do that tawaf. They didn't do it because they were exhausted, and a boy, he didn't do it because he was exhausted. And they returned all the way back home without that tawaf done. So his Hajj has been incomplete. His Hajj was not full. It was an incomplete Hajj. So even if you're exhausted, or someone from your group or your family member, they become so exhausted that they can't do the Hajj on foot, then you can hire a wheelchair or borrow a wheelchair, put them in the wheelchair and do the tawaf with them. And also you do not have to do the tawaf on that day. You don't have to do that tawaf on that day. Tawaf ziyarah's time is extended. It begins when? It begins at as-subh as-sadiq, the fajr of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, and it extends all the way to the sunset, maghrib time of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. So you have all of the 10th, 11th and all day of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah until the sun sets on that day. So that is the time of your tawaf ziyarah. Very, very long extended time. Okay. I would say, from our experience, don't attempt the tawaf ziyarah on during the day of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Because On that day, the entire Haram Sharif, Al-Masjid al-Haram will be congested. There would hardly be any space for you to put your foot on. Okay, in the mataf, the tawaf area, the first floor, the rooftop, everything will be jam-packed on that day. So don't attempt it, because you've now exited. As soon as your qurbani has been done, you've trimmed or shaved your head, you've done a ghusl, shower, everything, you've now exited. You're wearing your normal clothes, you're doing everything that you're allowed to do, except just husband and wife relationships. So you're fine now. There's no rush, just relax. Don't go for tawaf on that day. If you're a single person going, if you're going on your own, then it doesn't really matter. You can just go in that huge crowd if you wanted to, but even then it will be very hard. Much harder than if you were to wait and go at a later time, later date. It's easier to do tawaf during the night, but even on that night, the night after the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, even during that night, for the entire whole night, the Haram Sharif, Al-Masjid al-Haram will be jam-packed by Muttawifin, people who are doing the Tawaf al-Ziyarah. Because all the Hajjis are doing the Tawaf al-Ziyarah. And then they will also be going to do the Sa'i if they had not done the Sa'i before. Okay? Wait, I would say, as we suggest to you, wait till the 11th of Dhul Hijjah. Or even better, which we did, was we did not do a Tawaf al-Ziyarah on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, nor did we do it during the night after the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, nor did we do it on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah. We waited till the night after the 11th day of Dhul Hijjah. Okay, we waited till the night, we ate hadar supper, relaxed a bit, and then we went to Al-Masjid al-Haram and did our Tawaf al-Ziyarah then. Even then, it took us a very, very long time, because we did our Tawaf, after which we did our Sa'i of our Hajj. So we did Tawaf of our Hajj, Tawaf al-Ziyarah, followed by the Sa'i of our Hajj. Okay, that would be my suggestion to you, that don't attempt your Tawaf al-Ziyarah, the main Tawaf of your Hajj on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Take your time, assess the situation. When those who have gone to do their Tawaf have returned back to your hotel, or to Mina, then ask them what the condition is like over there in Al-Masjid al-Haram, and then based on that, make a decision as to what you want to do. Ji.
If you go for Tawaf al-Ziyarah,
Ji.
if you're tired, you can't stay overnight in Makkah Sharif. Or can you?
No, you can't. Okay, that's another point. I think I mentioned yesterday that during the day, the days and nights of Mina, okay, it is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to remain in Mina. So you must spend the night. You must spend the night in Mina. When you're there, when you've returned from Muzdalifah on the 10th, the night of the 10th, the following night, the night after the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, must be spent in Mina. On the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, if you want to finish it, then you must leave Mina. You must leave Mina by sunset on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. Okay? If you fail to leave Mina by the sunset of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, then it is makruh for you to leave Mina until the Fajr, the next Fajr. If the Fajr has begun, the Fajr of the 13th of Dhul Hijjah has arrived and you are still in Mina, now you must remain in Mina. You are not allowed to leave Mina. If you do leave Mina now, then dam is wajib on you. You will have to give a dam of a sacrifice of an animal.
So
Yeah.
you have to leave your tent, or you have to leave the boundary of Mina?
The boundary of Mina, not the tent. Okay, when I say you're leaving Mina, means the boundary of Mina. When you go to Mina, when you go to Arafat, when you go to Muzdalifah, you will always look out for the boundary. You will see huge signs, okay, huge pillars, where it will say in English and Arabic that Mina begins here, Mina ends here, Muzdalifah begins here. Okay, you will see that on one side of the pillar it will say Mina ends here. On the other side it will say Muzdalifah begins here. Okay, so always check where you are, so that you are where you should be. Sometimes a lot of people think they are in Mina. A lot of tents are also, because of they can't accommodate everyone nowadays within the boundary, the area of Mina. A lot of tents are also erected outside of Mina. People from our town, when we went 2 years ago, many people from our town, and in fact a whole group that went from Northampton, where they were put in tents which were in Muzdalifah. Okay, so you can't tell the difference, but I knew from the signs that Mina had ended there, and then Muzdalifah begins from there, and there were hundreds of tents on the other side of the border. and people were spending the night. It's not a huge issue, but it's beyond people's control. If that happens to you, don't worry too much about it. But you must spend the nights in Mina. If you go to Makkah Mukarramah during the day, then you must return and spend the night in Mina. That is the sunnah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. According to some of the non-Hanafi madhahib, it is wajib to spend the nights in Mina. The nights of Mina must be spent in Mina. They say it is wajib, compulsory. We say it is not compulsory, but it is a stressed sunnah, emphasized sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to do so. Ji.
If you go for Tawaf Ziyarat, and it takes also long because it's going to take long by going there and then getting all that. If you only a small part of night you come back and stay now, that should be okay. As long as you don't sleep there.
Oh no, I cannot. No, that's fine. That's not you. He's saying, Nasir Sahib is saying that if you went for Tawaf Ziyarah, say, and Tawaf takes you several hours to accomplish, or you do your Tawaf Ziyarah and you also want to, as most people will do, you also want to do your sa'i between Safa and Marwa of your Hajj. Now to do both things will require several hours. Okay? By the time you finished, even if that means that the night has ended, inshallah, then you will not be considered as someone who did not spend the night in Mina. Okay? Inshallah, that will not happen. If you finished, you've done your Tawaf Ziyarah, you went in the evening, you've done your Tawaf Ziyarah, you did your sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and it's 3 a.m. Okay? Even then, don't wait to pray your Fajr in Al-Masjid Al-Haram. Don't think, it's 3 o'clock now, Fajr is going to be at 5 o'clock. Then, why not just wait another 2 hours? I'll hang around here and pray my Fajr in Al-Masjid Al-Haram, where one salat is equal to 100,000 salat. One prayer is equal to 100,000, 1 lakh salat. No. The sunnah then, and the more reward is you in following the sunnah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is to go back to Mina and spend the night, or the remainder of the night in Mina. Had it been more rewardable to pray in Al-Masjid Al-Haram, then during the days of Hajj, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has so much attachment to the house of Allah Ta'ala, so much attachment to Haram Sharif, would not have been spending the nights and the days away from Makkah Mukarramah, in Mina, Arafat, Muzdalifah. He would have been coming back to Makkah. So, the Sharia, the Deen, is not following our whims and desires. It's not following our aql, our intellect, what our intellect, aql dictates. It is to follow what Allah Ta'ala commands and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commands and shows us. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's teaching and his action, his example, is that you spend the nights in Mina, even though praying in Makkah Mukarram, praying in Haram Sharif and Masjid Al-Haram is equal to 100,000 prayers. But no, following the Sunnah is even greater than that. So return to Mina. So you've done, when you go, on whatever day you decide and you manage to go and do your Tawaf Ziyarah, okay, and also your sa'i of your Hajj, and the sa'i, the method of the sa'i will be the same. When you will do your Tawaf Ziyarah, there will be no iztiba'. Why no iztiba' now for men?
Because we finished the ihram.
Yes, because you're not wearing your 2 sheets of ihram. So there's no iztiba'. So you're not required to take the side of your jubba, your kurta off the right side. No, there's no iztiba' because you're not in a state of ihram now. You will do ramal. You'll do ramal because after your tawaf, you're going to be doing sa'i. So whichever tawaf has a sa'i after it, then you do ramal in the first 3 circuits. Remember, this only applies to men. You will do your ramal in the first 3 circuits around the house of Allah Ta'ala, and then you'll finish your tawaf. You will pray your 2 rakat of tawaf salat behind Maqam Ibrahim. If there's no space there, then anywhere in the masjid, Al-Masjid Al-Haram, and then you will go to Safa, ascend Safa, and in the method that was described previously, you will begin your sa'i between Safa and Marwa, from Safa to Marwa, Marwa to Safa. You will do this, and you will end this. Your 7th run will be your 7th sa'i, or 7th portion of your sa'i will end at Marwa. When you finished, then you will do a dua. Each time you ascend Safa or Marwa, you will do a dua. Facing the Qibla, facing the Kaaba, you will engage in dua. You now have dua booklets with you. Alhamdulillah, the best of du'as are contained in these booklets. You can use these booklets as well throughout the duration of your Hajj. And then you'll pray 2 rakat salat if that is possible. Mustahab to pray, not required, but it's good to pray after you've done your sa'i, 2 rakat of salat. And then that's the tawaf of your Hajj done, as well as the sa'i of your Hajj done. Okay? Now you more or less completed. You're now very near to the shore. Okay? To the shore. You're now coming to the kinara of your Hajj, because you've done the bulk of your Hajj. Everything's done. There are just now 2 more things left to do. And they're very light, very easy. Which is now, you will now return. After you've done your tawafu ziyarah, and then you've done your sa'i of your Hajj, you will stay in Mina. You'll spend the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, as well as the day of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah in Mina, until sunset. You need to leave Mina, the boundaries of Mina, before the sun sets, before Maghrib of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, if you do not wish to remain for the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, which is optional. The only 2 things that remain to do now is that you will be pelting all 3 jamarat on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, and then you'll be pelting all 3 jamarat on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. Once you have completed your tawafu ziyarah, when you've completed your tawafu ziyarah, and provided that you've done the other 3 things as well, which is pelting of Jamratul Aqaba, the big shaitan, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, and then sacrificing your animal, or 1/7 portion of a larger animal, and shaving of the head or cutting of the hair. Provided you've done all of those and you've also done your tawafu ziyarah. Tawafu ziyarah does not have to be in the order. It can come in between those 3 things at any point. You can do your tawafu ziyarah between those 3 things at any point. But most people will not be doing the tawafu ziyarah until they've done those 3 things anyway. Okay? Only when your tawafu ziyarah has been done, then you are completely out of ihram now. Remember, until you had completed your tawafu ziyarah, you're not fully out of ihram. There's one thing which is still haram for you to engage in. Now that thing also becomes halal for you after you've done your tawafu ziyarah for husband and wife. Now, the amal to do on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah is that you will pelt all 3 jamarat, all 3 of them. The same thing on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, the pelting of all 3 jamarat. Okay? So very easy now, that's just this thing left to do. And also tawaful wida' or wada' or tawaful sadr, okay, which we will deal with later. Jay, quickly.
First, second and third day, anytime.
No, yes, I'm about to come to that. Okay, on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah. Now this is a bit tricky, you have to bear this in mind, right? Because otherwise the consequence is very, very grave. When you pelted the big shaitan on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, which was the sunnah time, remember, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, when you just pelt the big shaitan, on the first day of pelting, Jay? From? No, the sunnah time was from sunrise to zawal. That was the sunnah time. And alright, so from Fajr, from as-subh as-sadiq, from Fajr to sunrise was the makruh time. From sunrise to zawal was the sunnah time, the best time. From zawal to sunset was mubah time, jaiz time, permissible, lawful time, allowed. And then from sunset to the fajr of the next day is makruh again. Under normal circumstances, for normal people without any excuses. Now, on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, the timings are different of pelting the jamarat, the shaitans. You are not allowed to pelt the shaitans before zawal. At all. Absolutely no. If someone pelts the jamarat before the time of zawal, effectively we're talking about Zohar time. If anyone pelts the jamarat, then according to the Hanafi Imams, his pelting is not valid at all. It is not valid at all. He will be considered as having neglected his pelting on that day, if he does not repeat it. If someone's pelted and then someone said to him, you've done it wrong, it's not time yet, and then they do it after the time of zawal, then they've done it. Then the first pelting would be considered as laghu, that it's just going to waste. He's just wasted his time. But if someone pelts the reason why I say this is some people go with tour operators who do not follow the Hanafi madhab. A lot of Arab brothers do not follow the Hanafi madhab, the Hanafi School of Law. And their madhab gives them different times of pelting. Now if they take you Or you just follow the crowd and you go and pelt the shaitans before the time of Zawal on the 11th and or the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, and then your pelting of the jamarat of the shayateen is not valid at all. Okay? And when the time will lapse, okay, when the cut-off time or the deadline ends, then a dam becomes wajib on you, because you've neglected a wajib element of your Hajj. You must give a penalty of a sacrifice of an animal. So again, on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, you will pelt the jamarat, all three shaitans, after the time of Zawal. After Zawal has begun, after Zawal, you will pelt all three shaitans. Now, the timings on these 2 days, the 11th of Dhul Hijjah and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah again will be divided. Okay? From Zawal to sunset. On the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, from Zawal, okay, so we'll say from Zuhr. From Zawal or Zuhr to sunset, the time of Maghrib is the Sunnah time. Okay? So it's a very long time. The slot is very long. And then from sunset to the Fajr of the next day, from sunset to the Fajr of the next day is the makruh time. It's disliked, discouraged, detested time. Okay, makruh. Again, remember what I said? Makruh, generally for normal, ordinary people under normal circumstances. It is not makruh for women, nor is it makruh for the elderly, weak, frail and sick people. They can do it even during the night. This is what we did with my parents. We took them during the night for the second pelting and the third pelting. Jay?
If you are an able man and you have to go to the
Yeah, I've described that before you arrived. That was, I'll repeat it again because you've asked. I said, if you're a man like yourself, you'll have your wife with you, then you do it in the Sunnah time, and then after you've done it in the Sunnah time, just go yourself. You obviously know where things are because you've done it before. You will do it yourself. You'll come back to Mina and then take your wife and the other people with you during the night, and you'll just accompany them. You will not be pelting yourself, you just accompany them. Okay? That is the timing on both days, the 11th of Dhul Hijjah as well as the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. Those are the only 2 time slots. On the 10th of Dhul Hijjah you had 3 slots. 4 slots rather. 4. Makruh, Sunnah, Mubah, Makruh. On the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, do you need me to repeat the specific or details of the timings? Check in your books. On the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, I'll say very quickly, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, there are 4 time slots of pelting just the big shaitan. You have just the big shaitan to pelt on that day. The first time slot is from the beginning of Fajr time to sunrise. That is makruh. Okay, it's disliked, discouraged, not good. From sunrise to Zawal is the Sunnah time. That is the best time, the most thawab to do it then. From Zawal to sunset is the Mubah time, lawful, jaiz, permissible time. You can do it. It's not the best, but it's the second best. From sunset to the Fajr of the next day is the makruh time, disliked again. Okay, that's on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. On the 11th of Dhul Hijjah and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, you only have 2 time slots. Not 4, just 2 time slots. And these are the 2 time slots that from Zawal to sunset, Maghrib, is the Sunnah time. From sunset, from Maghrib to the Fajr of the next day is the makruh time. Okay. The other thing with regard to pelting is that if a person is ill, that they can't themselves go to the jamarat, they themselves cannot possibly go to the jamarat. Either they can't physically go, they're disabled, and they risk being hurting themselves, or they're ill and they risk becoming even more. Yeah, the condition, the sickness, illness worsening, becoming worse. Or they're too old. Sometimes some people can be very, very old. They can't walk that distance, nor can they be taken by anyone because of the crowds and the congestion there. If a person cannot possibly go there and do their pelting themselves, then they can appoint a proxy. Okay, they can appoint someone, a wakil, they can appoint a person, an agent, someone to do the pelting on their behalf. But you need to check with the ulama, check with the good Mawlana, good Shaykh at the time as to whether you or whoever who finds themselves in this condition is allowed to do so. You need to check with the ulama at the time, with an alim at the time, okay, when this arises. You cannot become a proxy, a wakil, a representative or agent, and act on their behalf in pelting the jamarat without their permission. You need to have their clear consent, okay? You need to have their permission. Now, you're in the group, your wife is ill, she's fallen ill. A lot of people just fall ill during Hajj because of the exhaustion, the heat, etc., dust, maybe germs, etc., floating around. People do become ill. Now, your wife she's ill, she's half behush, and your friends are going to do the pelting. The others in the group are going. So you think, oh, my wife's ill, she's taken paracetamol and she's half unconscious, half conscious, is asleep. I'm going to just go take her pebbles, I'm going to go and do it for her. If you do that, then that pelting will not be permissible, that will not be valid, it will be invalid. In the Sharia, if you act on behalf of another person in ibadat, okay, in those forms of ibadat which are permissible, in which it is permissible for a person to act on behalf of another person as a proxy, agent, wakil, then you must always have clear, express consent from that person. You must. For example, if Nasisa wants to pay the zakat of his wife, that is absolutely fine. Or if he wanted to pay my zakat, that's absolutely fine. But he needs to have permission from me before he pays the zakat. He paid the zakat, he went to a bayan somewhere, someone giving a heart-rendering lecture on what is happening in Palestine. And then he said, I'm going to pay all my zakat, and I want to pay even more, so I'm going to pay so-and-so zakat on their behalf. And he comes back and he informs me, oh, I've paid your zakat for next year. That's not valid. That zakat is not valid. He needs to have permission from me before he pays that zakat. If he were to pay the sadaqatul fitr of his wife, or any other member of his family, then he needs to have their permission first, before he pays the sadaqatul fitr on their behalf. If he wants to do qurbani on behalf of other people, members of his family or other people, then he needs to have their permission first before he does the qurbani of Eid al-Adha. Before he does it, he can't do the qurbani and then inform them, oh, by the way, I did the qurbani on your behalf. No, that is not valid. That qurbani will not be considered a qurbani. Similarly, when pelting the jamarat, if someone has been given permission by the Sharia to appoint a proxy, a representative, a wakil or agent to go and pelt the jamarat on their behalf, then they need to give permission to that proxy before that proxy goes and does the pelting. Okay, so make sure it happens in this way. You do it in this manner, that you seek their permission first and then you do it.
Is it a bad thing if anybody starting any sickness or anything, you tell them, a person tells you, okay, if I get worse, make sure you turn this for me. You can say that.
So repeat that. Sorry.
Somebody is taken ill. It's just taken ill and he's still in conscience and all that. So please do this and this on my behalf if I couldn't feel well.
Alright, okay. Yeah, and then he's so ill that say he's unconscious or he's been taken to the hospital. Or it happened to one elderly person in our group in 2012 from Bradford. As soon as we got to Arafah, and it was very complicated, as soon as we got to Arafah, he was a heavily diabetic person. He fell unconscious. And we got to Arafah early. So we got to Arafah before the time of Zawal. And remember, the wuquf of Arafah is from Zawal to sunset. And we were there in the morning. We got there very early when Arafah was almost empty. And he fell unconscious. And then the ambulance came and they wanted to take him to the hospital in Makkah Mukarramah or wherever the hospital was, but it was certainly not within Arafah. And that was complicated because then we had a discussion and we said, if he misses Arafah, he's taken to hospital and put on a life support machine or whatever, then his Hajj is gone. Then he will have to come back next year. He will have to exit his ihram by doing the rest of the things, if that is possible for him, his health permitting later. But his Hajj is not done, and he will have to return the next year. So we asked the ambulance crew if they would be willing to just hold on, and he wasn't completely unconscious, but he was very, very ill. His blood pressure and other things. But it was quite tricky because you have to balance between, his health, life and death, and his Hajj. And life is more valuable than a person's person's Hajj. Anyway, in the end, the medics decided to take him away. And alhamdulillah, he was lucky because after 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours, he returned and he was happy and he was like everyone else. His blood sugar level and blood pressure, everything came to the normal level. And then he was there just like everybody else. And he did his wuquf of Arafah. So if a person is so ill, then that person can give you the permission. You can ask them that I'm going to do your pelting of the big shaitan today on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. And in case you're so ill later that it's not good for me or wise of me to seek your permission and disturb you, then just give me the permission to do all 3. Then they can give you the permission to do the jamarat on all 3 days in one go. They can give you permission now and say that I've given you permission to do my pelting of the jamarat on my behalf on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, 11th and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. You can take that permission in that way as well. That is also. Now, we're now coming to the end of this. Now, the pelting of the shaitans. On the 11th of Dhul Hijjah and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, when you will be pelting all 3 shaitans, you will begin with the small shaitan. Because the small shaitan, as you ascend the Jamarat area, where the Jamarat are kept, the 3 Jamarat are located, you will not miss, you can't miss the big masjid of Mina, Masjid al-Khaif, which will be towards your right, and you will see it down in the valley. Okay? You will see a huge beautiful masjid with very tall minarets down there to your right. That will be the Masjid of Mina, where the Prophet ﷺ in that area, he observed, he stayed in Mina. ﷺ. The very first jamra that you will come across, which is nearest to the masjid in terms of the distance, will be the small jamra, al-jamratul ula, the small shaitan. Then the next one will be the middle shaitan, al-jamratul wusta, and then al-jamratul aqaba, the big shaitan, which is the furthest from the masjid. When you will pelt the first shaitan, you have 7 pebbles, in the manner that has been described. After you've done your 7 pebbles, you will move away from the shaitan, move away from the crowd, and then you will face in the qibla, try and ascertain where the qibla is, try your best to find out where the qibla is. You will move away from there to a distance, and then you will engage in dua. Okay? And this is where dua again is accepted. This is a very special place. You've done a very special amal, accomplished a very good deed, special deed, unique deed. Now you engage in dua. The ulama state that the dua should be, you should spend the duration that it would normally take you to recite 20 verses of the Quran. The time that it would take you to recite 20 ayat of the Holy Quran, you spend that much time in your dua. Try to spend that much time. Don't rush. Again, people rush. Many people don't even do dua. And those who do dua, they just do a quick Rabbana Atina Fid Dunya. That's it. Wipe their face, off they go. Or the others will be tugging them, pulling them. Come on, hurry up. We haven't got all day. No. Just relax and do it with your heart, concentration, devotion, do dua. Then you move on to the middle shaitan. Again, in the manner described, you will pelt the middle shaitan. After you pelted the middle shaitan, you will move away from there, face the qibla, do dua. Then you move on to the big shaitan, al-jamratul aqaba, the last shaitan. You pelt your 7 pebbles, Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, Raghman li shaitan, wa ridan li rahman, Allahumma ja'alhu hajjan mabruran, wa sa'yan mashkuran, wa dhanban maghfura. Okay, the dua should be after. Okay, not before. It should be after Bismillahi Allahu Akbar. Okay, you do that. Then, after you pelted your 7 pebbles, you pelted the big shaitan with the 7 pebbles, then that's it. There's no dua. Just remember this rule, inshallah you will not forget. If after a jamra, after a shaitan, there's another shaitan to stone, to throw pebbles on, then there is a dua. It's sunnah to do dua. If after the shaitan, there is no other shaitan to go and throw your pebbles at, there's no dua. Which means on the first day, when you on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, when you threw the pebbles at the big shaitan, there's no other shaitan to throw at. Therefore there's no dua, you return to Mina, to your tent. On the 11th of Dhul Hijjah and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, after the first shaitan and after the second shaitan, you have another shaitan to hit, to throw pebbles at. Therefore, there's a dua. After the last shaitan, al-jamratul aqaba, the biggest shaitan, there's no more to throw. Therefore, you return to your tent. So that's your everything now done. There remains the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, which is optional. If you so choose, if you want to throw the jamarat on the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, then you will remain in Mina and you will throw your pebbles 7 plus 7 plus 7, 21 on all three in the same manner as you did on the 11th and 12th of Dhul Hijjah on all three. Okay? If you want to leave on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, then you must make sure that you leave the boundary of Mina, the area of Mina. You exit Mina by sunset of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. There's a huge rush, congestion, everyone's scrambling to get out. You do not have to get out before sunset, before Maghrib of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. The deadline is the Fajr of the next day. Okay? That's the cut-off time. That's the deadline, when you by which time you must be out. If you cannot get out by sunset of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah from Mina, then it is now makruh for you to leave Mina. It is makruh. So it's not haram. It will not necessitate dam. It is makruh, disliked, discouraged. If the time of Fajr begins, the Fajr of the 13th of Dhul Hijjah has arrived, and you're still in Mina, you are now not allowed to leave Mina. You must stay in Mina today. If you do, then you will have to give the penalty of a dam. You have to sacrifice an animal. Okay? Just bear that in mind. If you can't get out before Maghrib, don't worry. Just relax, and then later on you can get out. Okay? If you have to. But if you're still there in Mina, and the Fajr has begun, then you cannot get out. You must stay in Mina and pelt all three jamarat on the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. Now, on the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, your time will be different. Now, that's quite tricky. So remember, the times are different of the pelting of the jamarat. On the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, the pelting of the big shaitan was done when?
4 times.
From?
Sunrise.
There were 4 times. Yes, there were 4 different times. Okay, you all know. Okay. On the 11th of Dhul Hijjah and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, there were how many times? 2 slots, time slots. From Zawal till sunset was the Sunnah time, and from sunset to Fajr was the Makruh time on both days. On the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, be you in Mina or be you out of Mina and coming back to just pelt the Jamarat, okay, which is also allowed. If you have left Mina, gone back to your hotel, then you can, a lot of people return on foot. Also Makkah Mukarramah and the vicinity becomes all pedestrianized, because there's not even space for people on foot to walk on the streets, let alone allow any cars on the streets. So the roads will be all pedestrianized, there will be no vehicles, no traffic, and you will have to walk long distances. And inshallah, you will be able to walk those distances very nicely, very comfortably, and you will enjoy doing it, inshallah. If a person did not leave Mina before as-subh as-sadiq, of after the day of the 12th, so the night between the 12th and the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, if a person did not leave Mina before as-subh as-sadiq, then it is wajib for that person to remain and to pelt the jamarat on that day. If he does not, then he's neglected the wajib, and if you neglect the wajib in Hajj, you pay the penalty of a dam. You must sacrifice an animal as a penalty. Okay. So you must leave Mina on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah before sunset. It is makruh. Remember this, right? There's a very subtle difference here. It is makruh to leave Mina any time between sunset and as-subh as-sadiq, Fajr time. It is makruh. If someone does exit Mina, even then that person would have saved himself from the wujub or the obligation of pelting the jamarat all three on the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. So a lot of people think that you must get out of Mina before the sun sets, and the people are scrambling and the rushing to get out of Mina. That is not the case. Even if you cannot get out of Mina before sunset, you still have the time to get out of Mina by as-subh as-sadiq, which is the time of Fajr. So there's a long time for you to get out of Mina. If you fail to do even that, you cannot exit Mina by as-subh as-sadiq of the 13th of Dhul Hijjah after the day of the 12th, then you have to stay and you have to pelt all 3 jamarat. If you do not do that, then you must pay a dam. Okay. When you are returning to Makkah Mukarramah from Mina, so you completed everything now, you're returning to Makkah Mukarramah, make sure on the way, just as throughout your journey of Hajj, you must make sure that you perform all your salat on time. Many people, because everyone on the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, at the end of the day, they will congest, all the roads will be gridlocked back to Makkah Mukarramah, and many people do not perform their salat. They neglect the Asr salat, they neglect the Maghrib salat, they don't make the effort to pray the salat on time. So be mindful of your salat. If someone decided that, no, I'm going to stay in Mina for the 13th of Dhul Hijjah and I'd like to get that extra thawab of pelting the jamarat, and it is optional, remember, then they may stay behind and they may do the pelting of the jamarat on the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, and they will get the extra reward. Same thing, in the same procedure as on the 11th and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. On the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, the optional day, the time for the Rami will be from as-subh as-sadiq to zawal will be makruh. From as-subh as-sadiq to zawal will be makruh, just as on the 11th of the 12th and the 12th. From the time of zawal to the sunset will be masnoon. So the timing, the various timings for the pelting, the Rami of the Jamarat on the 11th, 12th, and the optional day, which is the 13th, are all the same. Okay, they're all the same. Now that you've done this, alhamdulillah, your Hajj is complete. You've done your Hajj. There's just one thing that remains for you to do, which is the tawaful wada' or tawaful wida', the farewell tawaf. You just need to do your farewell tawaf. If after your tawaful ziyarah you had done even a nafil tawaf at any point of your stay in Makkah Mukarramah, then the obligation of tawaful wada' is lifted from you. You have discharged your duty of tawaful wada' even though you were not departing from Makkah Mukarramah. You don't have to do it. However, Mullah Ali Al-Qari rahimahullah ta'ala mentions that it is best, it is mustahab for you to do a tawaf just before you leave Makkah Mukarramah, so that make your very final amal, action in Makkah Mukarramah, your farewell tawaf, farewell to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make the tawaf your very last thing that you do in Makkah Mukarramah, the last amal that you do in Makkah Mukarramah. However, remember, as I've said, if you do any tawaf in Makkah Mukarramah during your stay in Makkah Mukarramah after you've done your tawaf ziyarah, then that tawaf will automatically count as your tawaful wada'. Just as, to give you an analogy, when a person comes into the masjid, then the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is that before you sit, you pray 2 rakat tahiyatul masjid. That's the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to pray 2 rakat of tahiyatul masjid. According to the Hanafiya, it is mustahab. According to the other Imams, they're very strict on this. So much so that some of the Imams say that even during the Jummah khutbah, when the Imam is saying the khutbah, when you come into the masjid, you must pray this 2 rakat. Even when the Imam is in khutbah. That's according to the other fiqh. But the Hanafiya are less they're much lenient on this. Now if a person comes into the masjid, and he does not pray 2 rakat tahiyatul masjid, but instead he performs, say, his sunnah of the salat for which he has come into the masjid, then automatically those rak'at of sunnah prayer that he had prayed, or mustahab salat that he had prayed, or any prayer that he may have prayed in the masjid, could be even qadha prayer that he prays, will automatically exempt him from the sunnah, the sunniyah of praying the tahiyatul masjid. Okay? Similarly is the case that if you do any tawaf, even a nafil tawaf, after you've done your tawaful ziyarah, then you do not have to do the wujub, or the obligation of tawaful wada' is lifted from you. However, it is best, as Imam Ali Al-Qari rahimahullah ta'ala says, it is best for you to do a tawaf just before you leave, if you can. If you can't, then don't worry about it, because you've got the exemption there from the Sharia. Same thing when you do your tawaful wada' or tawaful wida', After you've done your tawaf, you will do all the things that you have done when you did your tawaf for your Umrah and when you did your tawaf for your Hajj, your tawaf for Ziyarah. You will go to Maqam Ibrahim and you will pray 2 rakat of salat. You facing the Qibla, you will stand and drink the water of Zamzam. And then you go to the Multazam and you place your chest, your cheek, your palms on the Multazam, and you cling to the cloth of the Kaaba if you can reach it. But usually nowadays during Hajj they lift the cloth for the obvious reason that a lot of people will try and pull on it, or some people al-a'yadhu billah may try to cut pieces from it and take it back home. So you will cling on to, you will place yourself on the Multazam, and you will ask Allah Ta'ala for forgiveness, and you will do dua to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Shed as much tears as you can. Cry to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. You will not get this opportunity ever again in your life, or you may not get it. After that, you will do the istilam of Al-Hajar Al-Aswad, if possible. And then, if you are leaving Makkah Mukarramah, then and there, or whenever you're leaving Makkah Mukarramah after your Tawaful Wada', the farewell Tawaf, then you should be departing Makkah Mukarramah with a heart filled with sorrow and sadness, that you're leaving the most blessed, the greatest city in the world, the holiest city in the world, and you're leaving the holiest masjid in the world, and you're leaving the house of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. If a woman is in menstruation, then I think I've mentioned this before, then the obligation of Tawaful Wada' is lifted from her. She does not have to remain in Makkah Mukarramah until her menstruation, her haid, comes to its completion in order to do Tawaful Wada'. She can leave Makkah Mukarramah without doing Tawaful Wada' because the Prophet ﷺ gave her the exemption.